long before the world came to know him as the defiant, charismatic leader who dared to shake the foundations of neo-colonial dominance in West Africa. Ibrahim Traoré was just a name lost in the shadows of the Sahel. To understand how he survived against all odds, politically, physically, and even spiritually, you must go back to a night most of his countrymen never knew happened. A night so secret, so deadly, that not even members of his inner circle speak of it. This is the story that was buried. Until now. It was December 18, 2022, barely 2 months after Traoré had taken over leadership in a sudden military transition in Burkina Faso. The West dismissed him as a temporary figurehead, a hot-headed young captain caught in revolutionary fever. But inside the corridors of foreign embassies and resource corporations, his rise triggered quiet alarms. He had already made enemies. That night, a convoy of 5 black Toyota Land Cruisers moved silently toward the northern outskirts of Ouagadougou, off-grid, without military transponders. Inside were foreign operatives, trained mercenaries contracted through private military firms, speaking in clipped French and American-accented English. Their mission was codenamed Silence Rouge: terminate Traoré and make it look like a local insurgent attack. Traoré had felt the pressure. The sudden shift in alliances, his demand that French troops leave, and the renationalization of gold mines had put him in the crosshairs. But what he didn't anticipate: betrayal within his own ranks. Captain Doumbia, a close aide, had sold his location to the mercenaries. At 2:17 a.m., Traoré received a scrambled call from a loyal scout near his temporary safe house, a crumbling colonial-era villa 8 kilometers outside the capital. "Captain, they're coming. 5 trucks. Heavy weapons. It's not jihadists. It's something else." That's all the scout managed to say before the line went dead. Traoré didn't wait. He grabbed his weapon, a trusted Czech-made CZ-805 Bren, and roused his 2 bodyguards. But as they fled out the back gate, a deafening explosion shattered the walls of the villa. One of his guards died instantly. The other was blinded by shrapnel, and Traoré vanished into the forest. What followed was a harrowing 72 hours of survival that would break most men. Traoré trekked through dense brush, avoiding roads, slipping past checkpoints that he knew were manned by men in his own uniform, but not on his side. With only rainwater and tree bark to survive, he developed a fever by the second night. His boots were torn, feet bloodied, and his weapon jammed with mud after a panicked slip into a swamp near Bazul. He later recounted that on the 3rd night, hallucinating and burning with infection, he saw the ghost of his father, a schoolteacher who died under mysterious circumstances after opposing a mining contract with a foreign conglomerate. "Stand up, Ibrahim. You're not meant to die here." The voice gave him enough strength to crawl toward a signal tower in the distance. As fate would have it, the tower belonged to a retired colonel, Musa Tambura, living off-grid with his granddaughter. He found Traoré unconscious near the base, feverish and barely breathing. Tambura recognized him immediately, but instead of reporting him, he chose loyalty to the nation over protocol. For the next 4 days, he nursed Traoré back to health. Antibiotics, herbal compresses, dried goat meat broth, and silence. "The country doesn't need another martyr," Tambura told him. "It needs a survivor who knows who wants him dead." It was from this hidden cabin that Traoré made his comeback. Not to the public, but to a network of loyal officers and international sympathizers who had been searching for him since his disappearance. When Traoré reappeared 12 days later at a midnight press briefing, clean-shaven, composed, but with fire in his eyes, the room fell into stunned silence. "There was an attempt on my life," he said. "Not by terrorists, but by those who wish to keep Burkina Faso in chains. I have survived not by luck, but because this land is not done with me yet." Then he dropped a bombshell. He named the private military contractors involved. He revealed intercepted payment logs between a European mining company and the offshore accounts funding the operation. He exposed Captain Doumbia on live television and had him arrested in front of cameras. It was the first time a sitting African leader had directly accused Western corporations of sponsoring assassination plots on live broadcast. The fallout was seismic. From that moment, Traore went from soldier president to something far more dangerous, a symbol. The assassins didn't stop. But neither did he. His motorcade routes were randomized. His communication devices were re-engineered by Russian cybersecurity units. Chinese intelligence, intrigued by his defiance, began to offer technical consultations. Traore built a shadow security force, loyal only to him, trained in guerrilla warfare and urban counterinsurgency. But the real war wasn't fought with bullets. It was fought through propaganda, economic sabotage, and disinformation campaigns. Blackouts in Ouagadougou, a sudden malaria outbreak near gold mining zones. Fake videos of Traore in foreign brothels circulated online. Every tactic failed. Why? Because he had survived once. And he had learned. Few people notice it, but Traore now carries a scar just below his collarbone, covered by his uniform. It's not from a battlefield or ceremonial knife. It's from a bullet that grazed his chest the night of the failed assassination. Tambura had dug it out with a rusted blade and cauterized the wound with firewood. To this day, Traore refuses cosmetic surgery to remove it. This scar reminds me every morning that I am living on borrowed time. And I will spend every second of that time freeing my people. Most stories about African leaders are written years after their fall or death. But this story is different. This is the story of a man who should have died but didn't. A man who wasn't supposed to lead but refused to bow. A man who carries his nation's wounds on his skin and refuses to be another footnote in someone else's history book. Ibrahim Traoré is alive. Because survival for him is no longer just about breath or blood. It is about legacy. And this is only the beginning. The international silence that followed Traoré's televised revelations was chilling. Not a single embassy publicly responded. Not one international body condemned the plot. Behind closed doors, however, the reaction was apocalyptic. Files were shredded. Names erased. Operatives recalled. And a new protocol was launched, known only in intelligence circles as Ghost Protocol. It was no longer about assassinating Ibrahim Traoré. It was about erasing him completely, digitally, economically, politically. Suddenly, his bank accounts disappeared from global systems. His passport was declared invalid in multiple countries. An Interpol notice surfaced, accusing him of war crimes fabricated from doctored footage. The IMF suspended aid. The World Bank froze funding. Burkina Faso was labeled a rogue state in key international forums. Yet inside the presidential compound, Traoré's resolve only hardened. They want to erase me? I'll make them remember me forever. Desperate for strategic support, Traoré reached out beyond Africa. Enter the Cipher. That was the code name for a retired Chinese general Li Shun, who had masterminded cyber operations during the South China Sea conflicts. He had been exiled for defying the Politburo but lived quietly in Macau under protection. Traoré sent a single message through an encrypted satellite line. I need to become untraceable, but unforgettable. Within days, Shun responded not with words but with a team. They arrived via an unofficial flight through Djibouti. 6 engineers, 1 defector from Google's AI division, and a woman named Jin Lu, a digital warfare strategist whose dossier had once caused panic at Facebook headquarters. Together, they re-engineered Burkina Faso's digital sovereignty. The country's communication satellites were rerouted through an underground Chinese network. A parallel currency system was initiated using blockchain, Burkacoin. AI-powered misinformation bots were released, confusing global surveillance systems. Traoré was no longer playing defense. He had gone off-grid. On April 9, 2024, gunfire erupted in downtown Ouagadougou. Western media immediately declared a military coup against Traoré. Social media exploded with reports that he had been captured, possibly killed. International news anchors smirked, reading from scripts likely written weeks earlier. But what really happened was different. Traoré orchestrated his own fake coup. It was a decoy operation, planned in total secrecy with only 5 people in the know, to smoke out high-ranking traitors within his military and government. It worked. The coup's supposed leaders revealed themselves. Dozens of secret audio recordings were leaked showing their allegiance to foreign interests. Bank transfers were traced. Phone calls intercepted. And then, Traoré appeared the next morning, not in a bunker, but marching in uniform through the city streets with unfiltered crowds cheering him on. He had faked his own death only to rise again like a phoenix, this time with iron proof of betrayal. The public renamed him Le President Fantôme. When the African Union refused to investigate the assassination attempt, Traoré did the unthinkable. He called a press conference and played actual audio recordings, intercepts of Western diplomats and African leaders laughing about how this African boy would be gone before Ramadan. He then released files, encrypted documents with timelines, names, transfers, weapon serial numbers, all linked to Silence Rouge and Ghost Protocol. The world had never seen anything like it. He wasn't asking for justice. He was demanding global humiliation. 3 ministers in West African countries resigned within a week. France's ambassador to Burkina Faso was recalled. Protesters erupted in Senegal, Mali, and Niger, waving posters of Traoré like a liberation icon. But it came at a cost. A bounty was placed on his head, $20 million. In June 2024, Traoré was secretly flown to an undisclosed location in South America, likely Venezuela, for a covert summit with non-aligned leaders. What happened there was never recorded. No phones, no transcripts. But what leaked out weeks later was explosive. Traoré had proposed the formation of a Pan-African intelligence shield, a decentralized network that would allow African nations to detect covert foreign interference in real time, powered by AI and secured by blockchain. It would be operated not by governments but by civilians, activists, technologists, farmers, soldiers. If the lion must live in the savannah where cobras hide, he said, then let the lion become venom-proof. October 13, 2024. As Traoré stood to deliver a televised speech commemorating the martyrs of Sankara Plaza, a high-frequency sound wave triggered a neurological reaction in his left ear. It was a sonic weapon, a non-lethal but highly experimental device planted beneath the podium. He collapsed mid-sentence, bleeding from his nose. Global news declared a medical emergency. Rumors of poisoning flooded the internet. For 41 hours, Traoré was unconscious. But when he awoke, his first question wasn't about his health. Did the camera keep rolling? It had, and it showed something unexpected. As he collapsed, hundreds in the crowd surged forward, not away. Some shielded him with their bodies. Others attacked the stage techs suspected of planting the weapon. They weren't soldiers. They were citizens. He had earned something no weapon could destroy: unshakable loyalty. On January 7, 2025, Traoré hosted the first Pan-African Sovereignty Summit in Bobo Dioulasso. 18 countries attended. No European or American media were allowed. No UN observers. No live streams. Only African journalists, handpicked by community councils, were present. They weren't there to take notes. They were there to listen and carry the message home like griots of old. What Traoré said stunned everyone. Burkina Faso will not apply for IMF loans. We will not host foreign military bases. Our resources will not be sold, they will be shared. Any African nation ready to join us is not a guest. You are home. The crowd wept. Some leaders left the room in silence. Others stayed, eyes wide open, notebooks forgotten, history being written in real time. Today, Ibrahim Traoré walks with 2 guards, only 2. Not because he feels safe, but because he refuses to live in fear. He doesn't wear a bulletproof vest. He doesn't use a script. He doesn't ask permission. The world still doesn't know what to make of him. A revolutionary? A threat? A future martyr? But one thing is clear. He should have been a forgotten name in a classified file. Instead, he became the author of a new African chapter. Not by surviving death, but by refusing to die quietly. And now, every time his enemies ask how he's still alive, the answer echoes like a war drum. I was never supposed to survive. I was meant to awaken.